Okay, let's unpack this. What do olives, a bustling marketplace, and a cheesy sweet pastry have in common?
Eh? This sounds like the start of a riddle, doesn't it?
It really does. But it's actually the core of this deep dive, sparked by those fascinating articles you shared. They all seem to tell a story about a specific place.
Exactly. And our mission today is to explore those connections you flagged up. We've got olives, the Mahaneh Yehuda market in Jerusalem, and then these two desserts, nafe and kunafe, with this shared history.
Right. It's a great mix of sources, too. We've got culinary details on olives from Forks Over Knives, some really vivid news reports on Mahaneh Yehuda.
And the beer bazaar there.
Yeah. Plus info from the Kingdom of Halva, historical perspectives on Nafe and Kunafe from Arab America and the BBC, market history, even the story of the safgania, the jelly donut.
Oh, interesting connection there too. And insights into nafe's cultural role from Ish and Israel 21C.
So a lot to dig into, and you mentioned being really interested in how food and culture weave together and liking those surprising facts.
Well, get ready, because there are definitely some aha moments hidden in here. This would be a really engaging exploration.
Awesome. So let's start with olives. I usually just think pizza topping, maybe a martini.
Right. Pretty standard. But the forks over knives piece kicks off with something pretty wild. Olives, they're actually stone fruits.
Get out, like peaches and cherries.
Exactly like peaches and cherries, botanically speaking. But way different inside. Very low sugar, only about 3 to 6% compared to 30% in other stone fruits.
Wow, and high fat, right? The article said 12 to 30%.
Yep, quite fatty.
Yeah,
Which makes sense for olive oil, I suppose, but it definitely messes with your idea of fruit.
totally. And that bitter taste, if you were ever brave enough to try one off a tree, that's this thing called aluripine.
European precisely. It makes them basically inedible raw. So whether you want green olives, black olives, purple ones,
Yeah.
they all have to be cured.
Okay, so curing is essential. What are the main ways they do it? The article mentioned a few.
Yeah, 3 main methods, and they really change the olive's character. First up is the Spanish or cured method.
Lye sounds a bit intense.
It does, but they stress it's a food-grade solution, totally safe, it's efficient, works quickly. Think of those mild, meaty Castelvetrano or Manzanilla olives, nice and firm.
Okay. And those super black California olives.
Ah, right. The article mentions they often use an iron compound, ferrous gluconate, I think, not for flavor, but just to lock in that really uniform black color people expect.
Interesting. Okay, method 2?
That's brining, soaking in salt water. This gives you olives like Kalamata or some manzanillas too. They end up buttery, tender.
Good for stuffing, it said.
Exactly. The texture is perfect for it. And they absorb some flavor from the brine too. It can be black, purple, or green.
And the last one, dry cured?
Dry or oil cured, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Greek style or Moroccan beldies. These are intense. They're packed in salt for weeks, sometimes over a month, to pull out moisture and bitterness. Then they're soaked, rinsed, dried, and tossed in oil. You get this really robust, salty, kind of chewy olive, often with herbs and spices mixed in.
So much variety from one fruit. Any tips for picking good ones?
Yeah, the article had some good practical advice. Look for firm texture, uniform size in the batch. If they're in brine, make sure they're fully submerged.
And you can top up the brine yourself if it gets low, right? Just salt and water.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And, enjoy them, but maybe in moderation. They are higher in fat and salt, like 1 or 2 tablespoons is a typical serving size.
Good reminder. They even had a quick tip for pitting them with a chef's knife. Just press down flat.
Handy trick.
Now, thinking about the Mahaneh Yehuda market, even without specific recipes in our sources, you can just picture these kinds of olives everywhere, right? In salads, spreads.
Oh, absolutely. Olives are so fundamental to the cuisine there. You definitely find amazing varieties, both to buy loose and in all sorts of prepared foods, which brings us nicely to the market itself, Mahaneh Yehuda.
Yes. It sounds incredible. Such an icon in Jerusalem. More than just food shopping, right? It's like the pulse of the city.
It really seems to be. You've got every fresh produce, spices, baked goods, sweets, but also household stuff, clothes, art, a real mix.
And then it completely changes at night. Turns into this buzzing scene with restaurants and bars.
That's the modern twist, yeah.
Yeah.
But its history, detail on the market site, and in the reports is fascinating. It started way back in the Ottoman era, just an empty lot, basically.
No way.
Yeah, local farmers would just come sell their stuff. The authorities didn't build anything, so the sellers made their own stalls. Its success was really down to location outside the old city walls.
Then, under the British mandate, things getting a bit more formal.
A bit. The first governor, Ronald Storrs, saw its potential. He actually commissioned a proper plan, with infrastructure, sewage, lighting, water. An architect named Ashby designed it, even planned these grand Oriental-style gates.
Sounds amazing. Did it happen?
Not fully, unfortunately. Budget issues, apparently. So the grand vision wasn't quite realized, which is kind of a shame.
But it kept growing anyway.
Organically, yeah. The Etz Chaim Yeshiva nearby built some shops along its wall and rented them out, which helped them formalize things a bit. Then you had merchants themselves pushing for more permanent structures, leading to the first, second, and third permanent markets.
So, driven by the vendors themselves often.
Often, yeah. Though there were always tensions with the city over taxes and rules. And different communities shaped it too, like Iraqi immigrants setting up their own section.
And now it's this huge managed entity trying to balance tradition and modern life.
Exactly. Overseen by the Mahaneh Yehuda management now.
Yeah.
Which leads us to Eli Mizrahi. He seems key to its more recent revitalization.
Right. The ISRL 21C article really focused on him. Grew up right near the market, family business there since '52.
Selling nuts and spices.
Yeah.
Deep roots. He was even head of the Merchants Association. He clearly had this vision to bring back business, attract younger crowds, improve the whole area.
And he was pretty strategic about it, wasn't he? Using the light rail project as leverage.
He was. Basically said, you want our cooperation, you help us renew the market. Smart move.
And opened his own cafe, pushed for cultural stuff like the Balabasta Festival, supported the street art.
All part of bringing new energy.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is his view that despite the new bars and cafes, the market's heart is still fresh food. Those new places are just a small percentage.
So it hasn't lost its soul, in his view.
He really emphasizes that and the importance of the personal connection with vendors. His future plans involve setting up a proper nonprofit for the market, getting professional management, attracting even more diverse shops. Still very invested.
That's great. And the Beer Bazaar story is such a cool example of that new energy blending with the old market vibe.
Isn't it? This guy, Avi Moskovitz, comes from Brooklyn, leaves a high-tech job.
And his friends think he's nuts.
Huh, right. To open a pub selling only Israeli craft beers. Over 100 kinds.
Wow. And he called it a Zionist response to European boycott. That's quite a statement.
It is. That's how the source reported his framing of it. Adds another layer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this was back in 2015, a time with security worries. The article mentions a terrorist attack happening right there.
Yeah, awful.
But the Beer Bazaar was apparently buzzing every night anyway. Packed. It just shows this incredible resilience.
Totally. Moskovitz said he felt like he'd found his mission, and the market just bouncing back so quickly after something so serious. It says a lot about its importance.
It really does. That juxtaposition of everyday life and, well, extreme events.
Yeah. And speaking of things central to the market...
Halva?
Ah, yes, the Kingdom of Halva. Sounds like quite the institution there, based on their website.
It does. They talk about it being this premium product, pure sesame, and get this, over 101 flavors?
101. Seriously. That's incredible variety. They must really focus on quality.
Seems like it. And the tahini, too, the base for halva. They use Ethiopian sesame seeds, apparently the best.
And grind them with old millstones.
Yeah, to keep the nutrition and get that really smooth texture. They have lots of tahini flavors, too. And the family history is amazing. Started by the grandfather in the old city back in 47.
Right. But then they had to reestablish in Mahaneh Yehuda after 48. So the current owner, Eli Mamaneh, is third generation.
Wow, carrying on that tradition, it really adds depth.
And they highlight it being vegan, nutritious, delicious. And it even pops up in modern Israeli baking, like as a filling for safganiyot.
Yeah, those Hanukkah donuts. Halva filling sounds amazing, actually. Shows how it's woven into the culinary scene.
Which is a perfect segue to our next sweet topic, nafe and kunafe.
The cheesy wonders. Okay, so nafe first. Generally, we're talking layers of this buttery, crunchy, sort of shredded, phyllo-like dough.
Kadaif, or kataifi.
Exactly. Filled with a sweet, melty cheese, drenched in syrup, often gets that bright orange color, and usually topped with pistachios.
Sounds divine. Where did it come from? The origins seem a bit hazy.
They are. Likely medieval, maybe created for caliphs during Ramadan, that's one theory. The Arab America article mentions something called kataif, like a thin pancake or crepe way back in the 10th century.
An early ancestor.
Seems like it. By the 13th century, they started baking sliced kataif, and later developed this technique of pouring batter into thin strands, which became kadaif or nafa.
And the name nafa itself comes from Egyptian, right, for cake.
That's what the Aichi article suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
And as the Ottoman Empire grew, nafa spread with it. Jewish communities in the region adopted and adapted it too.
It's amazing how food travels. And that Kadaif pastry, the Asia piece calls it hares in Hebrew.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, it's really tricky to make well at home, so people usually buy it.
Makes sense. And the key is eating it hot, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That contrast between the warm, gooey, slightly salty cheese and the crispy, sweet pastry is everything.
And now there's so many variations, savory ones with meat, vegan ones, even that Pizza Hut Israel version.
Yeah, that one sounds bold.
Mm.
But you also see regional takes, like a ricotta version in Acre, or even a cheeseless one in Gaza using bulgur and spices. It's incredibly adaptable.
And it's clearly more than just dessert. The Aish article called it a source of cultural identity.
And mentioned that story about Yasser Arafat supposedly wanting it served during peace talks.
Yeah, it really shows how deep these food connections run, even into politics. And
Right.
people take it seriously, those world record attempts for the biggest nafe.
Definitely a point of pride, which leads to that whole big debate. Is it Jewish, Israeli, Arab?
Right.
The reality, as the sources suggest, is that it has a long shared history. Maybe the best approach is just to celebrate that shared heritage.
Makes sense. And while tourists might grab it as a snack in Machine Yehuda now, traditionally it was more for special occasions at home.
That seems to be the case, yeah. More of a celebratory dish historically.
Okay, so that's nafe. What about kunafe, the Turkish version?
Right, kunefe. The BBC piece really dives into this, especially its ties to Hatay province in Turkey. It's made with tel kadafe, which is described as this crunchy shredded wheat or semolina dough.
That's a slightly different pastry, maybe.
Potentially, yeah.
Oh.
And filled with a specific stretchy, unsalted local cheese. Hatay cheese, though they say fresh mozzarella is a good substitute.
Right.
And soaked in sherbet, their syrup.
And it's really seen as originating in Hatay.
That's the strong local belief, yeah. Very distinct Turkish identity. Traditionally a Ramadan treat, but now enjoyed year-round. The article even uses it as a metaphor for Hatay itself, this blend of sweet, salty, crunchy textures reflecting the region's cultural mix.
That's a beautiful image. And the stories about kunafe shops after the earthquakes?
Yeah.
Just heartbreaking, but also inspiring.
Incredibly so. Shops destroyed, but people reopening, even in temporary spots, as this symbol of trying to return to normalcy. The story of goes to Kunafe, losing their master maker, the owner having to step back into the kitchen with his wife.
Just shows the resilience, the importance of carrying on these traditions.
Absolutely. And the cheesemaker quoted talks about how central food, and especially kunafe, is to life there, even linking it back to ancient feast mosaics. He calls it the sweetest way to end a meal.
Wow. It really highlights the power of food heritage. The BBC even included a recipe, which is cool. You can see the overlap with nafa, but also those distinct Turkish touches.
Definitely. So, pulling it all together, you really see these threads connecting. Machine Yehuda Market is like the stage.
Where you find the olives, the hava, the nafe.
Exactly. And the market's own story of survival and change kind of echoes the resilience we see with kunafe and Hatay after the earthquake.
That's a great point. And these foods, olives, nafe, they have such deep roots in the region's history and culture, constantly evolving.
Right. And the market today embraces all the ancient traditions alongside the modern, like the beer bazaar or hava and sifkanya. It's this living blend.
It really is. So from that salty olive bite to the sweet cheese pull of nafe and the sheer energy of Machine Yehuda, food is just such a powerful way to understand a place, isn't it? Its history, its culture, its spirit.
Absolutely. It's clear you've got a much richer picture now of how all these seemingly separate things that you Clint say, the fruit, the market, dessert, are actually deeply intertwined.
Definitely feel like I understand the journey they've all taken much better now.
Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other everyday things we barely notice, the food we eat, the places we gather, hold these incredibly complex stories just waiting for us to look a little closer? Maybe the next thing you explore will uncover another unexpected link between, I don't know, a snack and a whole slice of history.